we're gonna read Monster High porn. Late night study session. Heath and Abby conduct an after-hours study session at school, but Heath is having a little trouble focusing. Can Abby help him relax? Oh god, I gotta do the fucking accent.
Wait, are you gonna do the narrating part?
Yeah, okay. I'll do the narrating. Okay, ahem. So, tell me types of bacterial cell structure, Abby said, putting the pencil behind her ear and I thought it said leaning in close. Heath glared at her before looking off into the distance, trying to decide where to start.
Wow.
He began pursing his lips together.
There is.
He looked at her, any indication for hints.
Filamentous?
Yes, good, she nodded. That's your line, shit.
Okay. Bacillus, coccus, and...
It's coccus. Pausing, he grit his teeth and looking away from her. Abby tried to start him and he mimicked her. Spirillum, something like that.
Spirillum.
I don't know, something like that. She sighed. The two had started an after-hour study session in the biology classroom, which had carried on much longer than they had anticipated. They had most likely been forgotten by the teachers, and only a few students were still lurking through the halls of Monster High. Heath had waited till the last minute to tell Abby that he hadn't studied for the big test tomorrow. It was worth 25% of their grade, and she was determined not to see him fail again.
Oh, who am I kidding? I'm not gonna get this.
He scowled, frustrated. Abby shook her head and gripped her hand in his. You're just nervous. You'll get it. You have already memorized so much in just a few hours. I think you're just letting fear get better of you. She caressed his cheek warmly, leaning in and giving him a little reassuring kiss. Heath smiled back at her, a little flutter coming over him.
I guess.
I know. Look here. Let us go onto cell theory. If something harder, you won't be so nervous with little things. He looked at something harder. Foreshadowing. He looked nervous, and she turned the pages in the biology book. Heath let out an exasperated sigh as she started reading it out loud. However, her affections earlier hadn't gone unnoticed. Perhaps if it had been the new information that his exhausted brain was refusing to process, or that she was pressed ever so close to him, the soft fur lining for her dress against his neck, her long white hair draping over his arm, his concentration was soon shifting elsewhere. Quickly, he turned back to the book, forcing himself to read the long italicized words that made no sense to him. Something about spirogyra and micrographia, her delicate blue fingers trailing over the text. Focus. Robert Hooke. Right. Nucleus and osmosis. Right. The way she said them in that sultry accent, her lovely pounding pink lips accentuating the Latin phrases the best she could. You're like checking the door, aren't you? You wanted those lips on it. I can't. On his... Where am I? On his mouth, his neck, his chest, his cock. He wanted to grab her, throw her on the table, and lick her until she screamed. Abby was in the middle of defining prokaryotes when she turned and realized he wasn't looking at the book at all, but instead directly at her breasts, hidden behind the bothersome fabric of her sweater dress. Pausing only for a moment, she continued to reading aloud. Bad grammar. A playful little grin on her face, speaking louder in an attempt to get his attention. However, Heath was long gone, and all he was thinking about was sucking on those perfect tits of hers, licking and biting her nipple. When he put his hand between her licking and played with her clit, coming to... He realized he was hard and let out an annoyed grunt, feeling like a careless fool. Abby was also having a little trouble sticking to the lesson, her eye catching the arch in his pants and trying to hide his blushing cheeks from her. She couldn't help but feel a similar desire come over her, and her heart began to pound, and ever so suddenly she rubbed her leg against his. He felt it, but didn't notice it was intentional, just another temptation adding to his bad luck. He tried to think of a way to loose his heart on and get back to the task at hand, but as her legs seemed to continue rubbing against his, it was becoming impossible. Oh, I gotta fucking whisper. I'm not going to. Heath. Abby whispered to him, yanking him out of the desperate battle against hormones, and met his gaze with half-liddled eyes. "You're not paying attention, love." Her expression was chastising, but she didn't pull away. "I'm supposed to be helping you to study, not distraction." Heath grinned sheepishly.
No, it's not. I can't focus because it's hard.
Referring, of course, to the lesson. "Yes, it is." He jumped when her hand was gripping the table. He snatched her wrist up.
"What are you doing?"
He whispered frantically, looking around to make sure they were still alone.
"We're at school."
"No one is here, and you cannot study if you cannot focus. You need help, yes?" She moved in close to him, her lips meeting his in a gentle kiss, hand back on his thigh and squeezing hard. "You need release?" Release! Release! In italics.
"Seriously, this is really not a good idea, babe.
It was becoming increasingly hard to argue with the ghoul as she began to kiss him again, parting his lips with her tongue, pressing into him. Heath's fingers were gripping the pencil so tight it was about to snap when he finally let it drop and grabbed her head, pulling her closer and reaching down to cup her breast in frustration and desire. Abby moaned into the kiss, reaching back down to stroke him through the fabric, the stiff heat causing her to tingle with pleasure. As they finally parted, breathing hard, a little saliva connecting them, she looked No, not Murray! Fuck, where was I? She licked her lips. "Want to have a little fun with me?" I sound like Squiscar. Heath grit his teeth, flustered with need.
"Yeah, please, do it to me, babe."
Best line. She immediately dropped to her knees, fumbling hurriedly with the zipper on his jeans and pulling it down. Heath gripped his chair tight when he pulled out his throbbing which looked to be on the verge of climax. Already, whoa there.
"Oh, there, friend, you might need to slow down."
Oh my, Abby looked up at him with those enchanting purple eyes. "You will be patient, yes?" He sighed.
"I can try if you go easy. You're getting really good at this."
She smiled brightly before twirling her tongue against the tip, making him shudder. "I love doing this to you." Bending down, she took the head into her mouth, sucking hard, pulling out her icy tongue. It's like before it freezes. It is now made of ice. Where was I? Run her ice tongue skillfully up and down the length. It was lucky that, being a fire elemental, he could regulate his body temperature to even out her own and balance them out, which made them a perfect fit for intimacy. Heath tilted his head back and closed his eyes, breath hitching as his ice princess It says hitching, not itching.
But I was wondering, why does it say hitching?
I don't know. And groaned loudly when she deep-throated him, filled to the breaking point with his pulsing rock-hard cock. It wasn't easy. He was at an impressive size for his age. She had enough practice to satisfy him properly. Whoa. Abby stayed like that for a minute, relaxing her jaw and looking up at his handsome face, lost in sensation, beads of sweat clinging to his neck and forehead. She reached up and ran a hand under his shirt, fondling his abs and moving up to twist his nipple, which caused him to yelp, flick, which caused him to yelp slightly. Deciding she had adjusted enough, slowly she started to suck him, her lips tight and dripping with saliva. Dropping his head back down to look at her, the sight was almost too much to bear as she obediently pleasured him just the right way, her bright eyes locked with his, making sure he was enjoying himself. He had to shut his eyes again, knowing if he didn't try to hold back, he would come too fast. Abby was one incredible ghoul. She would do almost anything he asked. Not that he had to ask. She was always curious and loved exploring ways to make him lose his mind. Lose his mind. And she always got a good hard fucking out of it. If he made sure to leave her satisfied. He made sure to leave her satisfied every time. Abby sucked him harder, her throat muscles clenching and tongue stroking along the raging organ, which was getting bigger every minute. How is it not, on fire? Trembling, he let go of the chair and grabbed the back of her head, tangling his fingers in her snow-white hair. You have to see it.
Fuck, baby. You're so damn good.
Not being able to resist anymore, she gave it all she had, sucking so hard and fast that his body had tensed up and his groaning was getting so loud that they were sure to be heard by any curious student who may have still been wandering through the halls at this hour. If his cries weren't loud enough, her loud, wet slurping mixed with her little moans would sure been a dead giveaway. Heath's heart was pounding, completely lost in pleasure when his toes curled and he knew he couldn't last any longer. Don't say it. Okay, now you can see it.
Shit, Abby, I'm coming!
With a guttural growl, he arched his hips, shooting his seat down her throat. Abby stilled herself, holding onto his trembling thighs as he spent himself. After a few moments, Heath finally settled back into the chair, panting wildly, his whole body limp. Abby released the softening member, slowly tightening her lips, taking care not to let any cum spill as he swallowed it all down. Bella wants to leave. She's like, I don't know what's going on. Making sure he watched her do it, he smiled at her, and she curled up to meet his lips in a loving, playful kiss. Feel better, do you?
Oh, yeah. You're amazing, Abby.
He brought her into a tender embrace and kissed her neck passionately. I am your tutor. Must make sure you study proper and not nervous. You wish to continue lesson now, my love? Heath chuckled, caressing her cheek.
Yeah, I think I can manage now.
He turned back to the flicked back of the chapter in the Vitology book, hands still quivering and sweat impairing his vision. Abby smirked and zipped up his fly, taking care to make sure none of his seed had leaked and made a mess on the fabric. That would be embarrassing.
How embarrassing.
As he looked back at the chapter, he noticed the words were easier now that his mind was clear, and he let out a satisfied sigh, but as she sat back next to him, he couldn't resist as he snaked his hand under her skirt. Abby was about to start the chapter all over again, when she squeaked in shock as his fingers stroked her dripping slit. She shuddered, lost for words, as he brought his fingers and licked the juice off. You.
What?
He grinned devilishly at her.
Having some trouble staying focused.
The end!
The end.
Oh my god, we did that though.